Members, on the 16th of December 2013, there was a very serious disruption in train service on the Tseung Kwan O Line. Members wanted the administration to give electrical a report, and that's why we have this special meeting of the subcommittee on matters relating to railways to hear the report from the administration and from the MTRCL. We've got paper 5951314-01, paper from the administration. And then paper 02, a letter from me. Paper 03, letter from Dr Elizabeth QUAT. 04, paper or letter from Mr. Wong Kwok-hing. Then we've got a letter from Mr. Gary Pham, which has been tabled. And then finally, we've got a paper 05, background brief prepared by the Secretariat. So I'd like to welcome the officials and also representatives from the MTRCL. So please invite them in.
我哋盡快入嚟，我哋慳啲時間喎。嗱，今日個我哋嘅會議呢，
So we'll adjourn the meeting by 1 p.m. So we have almost the entire bureau here with us. We have the secretary, the permanent secretary, the deputy secretary, and some other representatives from the administration. And then from the MTRCL, we have Dr. Cam, Operations Director. Then we have Mr. Tony Lee, Chief of Operations Engineering, Mr. Francis Lee, Head of Operating, and their colleague. So welcome. Now, first of all, I want to say that I have been asking the administration to provide a paper for us. You know, I can't read while I'm conducting a meeting, and so then I said I would at least need 45 minutes, and they were able to give us the paper about 45 minutes before the meeting. All right. Secretary, Chairman, the administration is very concerned about the overhead cable failure on the Tseung Kwan O Line and the Kwun Tong Line on the 16th of December. EMSD staff arrived at the site as soon as possible. I also went to the Yau Tong station, and we asked the MTRCL to provide a report within 3 working days. Yesterday, the Transport Department received the report from the MTRCL. And members can refer to the paper to members for the salient points. And as members have just received the paper, please, Chairman, allow the MTRCL some time to brief members on the causes of the accident and also the emergency measures taken. Now concerning the damage done to a device which and that caused the accident, the MTRCL will require 2 months to carry out an in-depth investigation. Of course, nobody wants to see such incidents or disruptions to service, but then if there is a disruption of service, there must be sound and proper emergency and contingency measures implemented. In fact, the MTRCL has got a set of contingency measures in place, and all in all, on that day, the measures as agreed earlier were implemented, and of course safety was the paramount concern. And so after the incident, MTRCL as soon as possible stopped the service and started emergency repair. In fact, after the end of service on that day, 6 other similar overhead cable devices were inspected to make sure that they could operate normally. Now on that day, concerning on apps, at MTR stations, there were signages, broadcast. So members of the public were informed of the disruption of service and the arrangements concerning emergency buses. All in all, order in the stations was satisfactory. But then, as to whether information could have been disseminated in a more timely manner and more effectively, of course, there is always a room for review. And then, concerning road-based transport, available alternative means of such transport available. It is said that in the pamphlet some of the information is not updated enough, and MTRCL has already promised to keep the content of the pamphlets under review, and then a backup tunnel was used so that the cross-harbor service could be maintained. And then there was free emergency bus service serving over 21,000 passengers and running about 430 trips, and those could help to minimize the impact caused by the disruption of service. And then concerning the emergency center, the joint steer, the highest level of alert was activated. There was liaison with the police and other public transport operators. And for 10 franchised bus routes, the service was strengthened. 31 additional buses were deployed to serve the passengers. Chairman, the railways are the backbone of Hong Kong's public transport strategy. We provide an efficient service, and of course it's important that the MTRCL provides a reliable and safe service. Now, I want to say, of course, maintenance is very important. Whether MTRCL contracts out its maintenance works or not, the administration will monitor its maintenance and safety standards all the same. The Railway Inspectorate is responsible for railway safety. It will carry out an independent investigation of the incident to see whether there are systemic problems or faults. And the inspectorate will also receive the in-depth investigation report provided by the MTRCL. And then for, of course, we have minibuses and buses serving Tseung Kwan O. The administration will carry out reviews on a regular basis to make sure that Tseung Kwan O, like other districts, is served by adequate public transport services. And in order to cater for the demand arising from the future development of Tseung Kwan O, we are already planning the tunnel. So we always require the MTRCL to provide a high standard, reliable and safe train service. The MTRCL will carry out an in-depth investigation into this incident to find out the underlying causes and to prevent the recurrence of similar incidents. EMSD will also carry out an independent investigation and will make public the results after the 2 investigations have been completed. The Transport Department has arranged meetings with the MTRCL concerning the implementation of emergency measures on this occasion and areas for improvement in the future. And now may I hand over to the MTRCL to give members more information. Secretary, our next regular meeting will be on the 3rd of January. Can you make the outcome of the investigations public at the time? No, not yet, Chairman. Dr. Ham. Yes, Chairman. Good morning. Members, good morning. So on behalf of the MTRCL, I would like to again apologize to affected passengers on behalf of the corporation. Passengers have told us where we can make improvements. They've told us what the problems are. We'll make improvements. Now, concerning maintenance and safety levels, we never compromise. We are very rigorous working procedures. We have adequate resources with big use of advanced equipment to maintain the standard of our service. Every time there is an incident, we try to minimize the inconvenience caused to the passengers. But of course, I understand that there is room for improvement. And on this occasion, electrical members and the public gave us a lot of suggestions in particular with regard to the dissemination of information and the provision of feeder bus services. Now, concerning the cause of the incident, we've completed a preliminary technical investigation. And so let me give members some preliminary information. I hope that members and passengers will understand that after an incident has occurred, we need to assess the impact on our service, and of course we need to deploy extra manpower. We need to arrange for feeder and emergency buses to be deployed, and all these take some time. Yes, we do understand that free of charge feeder buses can only play a supplementary role, and so when there is a disruption of service, passengers need clear information so that they can plan their journeys. And so we will, through announcements, broadcasts, and also our apps, inform affected passengers as soon as possible about the latest situation so that they can plan their journeys. And now may I invite Tony to give you an account of the incident. Yes, Chairman. Yes, perhaps members can look at this slide. You can see that this is about 100 meters from Tseung Kwan O Line, Yau Tong bound. In fact, this is a sort of change of point between the Tseung Kwan O Line and the Kwun Tong Line. And about 12:30 p.m. on Monday, there was a T25 train on the Tseung Kwan O Line moving from Tseung Kwan O Line to Yau Tong Station.
The safety device of the overhead cable has broken the fuse, cutting the power supply there. T25 with no power supply can use its residual power to go to Yau Tong Station and continue with its journey. Then our company can revive the power supply in that region. And not long afterwards, a T10 on the Kwun Tong line, although in another power supply zone, when it is going to Yau Tong, the safety device of the overhead cable was triggered also, thus stopping the train. At that time, another Tseung Kwan O Line T26 train just left Tseung Kwan O Line station towards Yau Tong, and the overhead cable also jumped the fuse and stopped the power supply to that region or zone. We immediately sent our colleagues to understand the situation. On the spot, we saw that linking Tseung Kwan O Line and Kwun Tong Line, the overhead linking cable had dropped from its original position. And the Kwun Tong Line T10 train had one of its pantographs caught by the dropped overhead cable. Thus, there was this fuse breakdown, and so the train had stopped. We had to as soon as possible bring the passengers to the nearest station as soon as possible, that is Yau Tong Station. Why is it that the overhead cable had dropped from the original position? Now, the cable was comprised by many segments of overhead cables, and the overhead cable has to be straight before the pantographs passing by can obtain power. How are we going to straighten the overhead cable? Each independent overhead cable will on one side be weighed so as to straighten the cable, and on the other end, at different parts of the stations and in different spaces, we'll use different devices to stabilize the overhead cable to the wall or the ceiling of the tunnel. Now, without power, there was no tension, and the pantograph touched the overhead cable for train T10. On that day, at the position of the accident, there's a triangular shape bronze rope straightening two overhead cables, including a vertical medical bar and a bronze wire in the tunnel. We noted that the bronze rope was broken and the overhead cable was not subject to tension and dropped. This triangular bronze device was only used in Tseung Kwan O Line. And there are 3 positions here. Apart from the accident spot, other installations were only under 1 overhead cable. We inspected other devices on the same day and discovered that they're in good conditions. And a bronze line should be very durable. Now that it's broken, we can only speculate on the possibilities. There are 3 possibilities. First, rusting or external factors. Second, it's not strong enough in itself. Third, there are flaws in the materials or the assembly handicraft was not good. If it is rusting or external factors, they should be detected by our routine inspections. But we checked our records, and after inspecting the bronze wire after the accident, we did not see any rusting or external factors. So that's not relevant. As for the other 2 possibilities, they are not related to repair and maintenance. So we need to wait till the result of the laboratory tests are out, and that will take time. Before the test results are released, we have to do 2 things. First of all, we'll temporarily stop using that line transfer installation, and that section of the overhead cable will not be used either. And then for similar triangular bronze wires, we'll add an additional metal wire to increase the tension to guard against the recurrence of the Monday incident. As for handling of the incident, I'll defer to Francis. Well, Mr. Chairman, after going through the technical aspects, I believe members are very concerned about the contingency plan. We stopped the Tseung Kwan O Line and part of the Kwun Tong line for repair. And Tseung Kwan O Line was disrupted in 2 transfer positions. As repair was going on, we need to stop the power supply and trains could not turn back, thus affecting passenger services. And we envisaged then that the repair work would take several hours to complete. Through the media and broadcasting stations and notices in stations, as well as smartphone formally, as well as the MTRC website, we notified passengers how services are affected. We also arranged free feeder bus services for the passengers and appealed to passengers to use other rail lines or other modes of transport. Although we had arranged free feeder buses, I'd like members to understand that bus capacity is very different from the MTR capacity, so buses can only be subsidiary in nature. The affected areas are quite vast, thus leading to more complications and difficulties. So we appealed to passengers to use other rail lines or other modes of transport. And our operations department also make special arrangements to ease the traffic burden. A backup section of the Kwun Tong line was used, and at around 2:30 p.m., people can make use of Lambton to go to Quarry Bay and North Point, thus reducing the inconvenience caused to passengers. Well, for communication arrangements and dissemination of information as well as assistance to passengers, I'd like to inform members of some details. First of all, we would like to thank the media for disseminate the information immediately to the passengers. And in train cars and stations, we had immediate broadcasting to inform passengers in our network that certain services had been suspended and what our special arrangements are. And through our big display boards, we inform passengers of other modes of transport, like the bus station positions. And when a certain train is to arrive, big display boards were erected in the station concerned to direct passengers to the feeder buses. On that day, through the affected stations, we distributed rail service suspension passenger guides to the passengers. That could be browsed over our website. Once again, I'd like to say sorry to our passengers. Our bus routes had been changed recently. For Route 692, due to route redevelopment, it stopped at the end of November. But our passenger guides failed to update that piece of information. This is an imperfection, and will upgrade the guides as soon as possible. Secondly, we had posted advertisements in all our stations. The information display monitors by the side of turnstiles informed passengers of the temporary arrangements. Fourthly, to facilitate members of the public and passengers to have information of the MTRCL, we have provided passenger news through smartphone formula. 1.3 million passengers have downloaded the formula, which is very useful to passengers. On that day, after we grasped the exact situation, we used the formula to disseminate the information to passengers, to notify them that Tseung Kwan O Line and Kwun Tong Line were affected. We also informed them of the feeder bus arrangements and urged them to use other modes of transport. As for passenger management at bus stations and MTR stations, we've set up a dedicated task force to cope with emergencies. And in October this year, we had a particular passenger support team to go to various stations and feeder bus stations to assist passengers. In the interim, we deployed an extra 150 colleagues to assist the passengers. Besides, on that day, together with many government departments, we had close coordination. Here, I'd like to thank them for their assistance, as well as thank the passengers for their tolerance and patience on that day. Given this major emergency, we triggered the emergency arrangements. We also triggered the feeder bus arrangement with the Transport Department, so the passengers can fly between Tseung Kwan O and Kwun Tong, and feeder buses to be provided for stations affected. However, on that day, we had difficulties in arranging feeder buses. Particularly on that day, there was a traffic accident in Tseung Kwan O Tunnel, thus lengthening the journey time. We deployed over 100 feeder buses with 400 trips to carry 21,000 passengers. Sorry, the speaker is not coming through. Sorry, the speaker is not coming through. From the TV screen, we saw that bus queues were long. Fortunately, the order was good. So once again, we'd like to thank our passengers for their tolerance and patience. On that day, our colleagues tried their very best to provide assistance to passengers and do immediate repair, such that before the rush hours in the afternoon, we restored our normal services and services for rush hours. Bus capacity is very different from MTR capacity. It took us time to call the feeder buses, so some time had lapsed before the buses came. So we appealed to passengers to take feeder buses or other modes of transport. With introduction introduction of advanced technologies and advancement will continue to provide reliable and highly efficient services to our passengers. Thank you. We'll have to grasp our time. I saw 13 hands from our colleagues, plus me, and then we have to handle 2 motions. For the first round, 4 minutes each. Well, maybe we can't have a second round. Kwok Wong Kwok-hing, Tan Kap-piu, Chan Kam Lam, Chen Yun Han, Leung Ko-hong, Gary Fan, Poon Siu Ping, Wu Chiu Wai, Frankie Yek, Lo Wai Kwok, Albert Chan. Have I left out anybody? Lee Chok Yan. Lo Wai Kwok, yes, I mentioned your name. Sorry, the speaker is not coming through. The speaker is not coming through. All right, no problem. Everybody will have a chance to speak. If I have to set priorities, that will take me 10 more minutes. All right, 4 minutes each. First, Dr. Kwok-hing. Thank you, Chairman. In this incident, we have to commend the general public for their tolerance. The MTRC was very unreasonable. And even today, we don't see the CEO of the MTRCL. Where's he? Last year, the MTRC collected $62.7 million with 24 senior staff earning $5 million, with the highest at $12 to $15 million per staff. And then there are other senior officers earning millions of dollars. Now these people enjoyed a high salary. During ordinary days, they sit in their offices to enjoy the benefits we give them. MTRCL belongs to the public. 77% of the shares belong to Hong Kong government. That means the Hong Kong public. When an accident occurred, we don't know where the CEO was. He's not attending today. $7.5 million of penalty is to be deducted from their proceeds. That's the money of Hong Kong people. You should deduct that from their salaries. With this incident, why should we still tolerate them?
Now, in fact, it's not reasonable to merely make deductions from their profits. So they are saying that the cables are not good enough, or the ropes are not good enough. So, Secretary, I think the senior management in the MTRCL should be punished for this incident. And then secondly, MSD will have to carry out an investigation. It's going to take 2 months. And we don't know what's going to happen in the next 2 months. Will there be problems with other sections of the overhead cables? We have no confidence in the MTRCL now. I want to know whether the MSD has carried out independent inspections to make sure that the operation of the railways is safe. Now, it's lucky that on the 16th of December, there were no injuries. You know, in some cases, there may be service disruptions, and on top of that, injuries or even deaths. So how can you give assurances to the passengers that the service is safe? So has the EMSD carried out an independent investigation? Why is it that your boss is not here, and then punishing or imposing a fine on the senior management? Now, in fact, when we look at the salaries of the senior management, we look at a number of factors, including the performance of the corporation. And so I will be bringing this suggestion back to the board for the consideration. And Secretary, do you know that in fact you're not punishing the senior management, you are in fact punishing taxpayers? Now, I want to say that the profit level is one of the factors that we use in assessing the performance of the MTRCL, but of course we also look at the standard of service provided by the corporation. Now we have to look at each incident individually, whether it's because of mechanical breakdown, whether it's because of mistakes made by the management. All right. Mr. Leung, will you carry out an independent inspection of the railway? In fact, every year we carry out over 130 inspections of the railway system. We use a risk-based approach to monitor the operation of the railways. We look at passenger flow, frequency of service in deciding on the risk level, and then we work out our inspection program accordingly. And concerning safety devices and the high-risk devices, we do have more inspections. And we carry out investigations into incidents of public concern and incidents where safety may be at stake. Right, time's up. Now, members, 4 minutes for each member. If you want replies from them, please only spend 3 minutes on your questions and give them 1 minute for the reply. Mr. Wong Kwok-hing. Now, in fact, concerning this serious incident, in fact, there were past incidents which were also very serious, and then on the following day there was a serious accident on the LRT system. There was a fire, and I think we shouldn't be looking at a particular copper device or a particular railway line. Now, in fact, this is a long-standing problem. The problem has arisen because MTRCL has contracted out its maintenance service. So I think what the administration and what the MTRCL have told us can't really get to the root of the problem. I think the fine should be imposed on the directors of the MTRCL. The pay of the directors should be cut. If we don't punish directors, it would be meaningless. So in fact, I have put forward a motion, and that is the fines imposed on MTRCL should be extended to cover directors of the MTRCL, their bonuses, their pay, and there should be an implementation timetable. I thank Mr. Tseung Kwan O Line for supporting my motion. So will you study the proposal to cut the pay and the bonus of the directors? You can't only punish members of the public. In fact, if there are incidents, the traveling public suffer. So every time the traveling public or the public are punished. So will you set a timetable for this? And second, it was said that the administration adopted very rigorous standards to monitor the safety of the railway system, despite the fact that some maintenance works have been contracted out. Now, Secretary, I find your remark unacceptable. I think what you've said is meaningless. Now, the union members, MTRCL union members, have convened a press conference. They've told us that there are rumors that the Tsuen Wan maintenance depot will be contracted out or outsourced. So why is it that you are turning a blind eye to this problem? So are you of the view that all the maintenance and repair departments of the MTRCL can be contracted out and outsourced, and you're not going to do anything to stop this trend? Thank you. Mr. Wong, so you've spent 3 minutes. Secretary, I'll ask Dr. Kam to say something about the outsourcing of maintenance and repair works. But then, in the past 2 years, concerning disruptions of service exceeding 30 minutes, they involved different lines, and some of the lines were maintained by MTRCL staff, some by outsourced staff. So we can't put the entire blame on the outsourcing of the maintenance works. And can the Secretary use the remaining 20 seconds to tell us whether he will consider imposing fines on directors? Now, concerning the maintenance service of the MTRCL, its overall performance, all these will be taken into account in assessing the overall performance of the MTRCL. The board will consider all these factors in deciding on the pay packages of the senior management. Then concerning the member suggestion, I'll bring it back to the board. Mr. Tang, $7.5 million fine. In fact, it's really like a fly trying to bite an elephant. Imagine how thick the skin of an elephant is. Do you expect that improvements can be made? We are referred to para 18 of the paper. Now, of course, this paper is issued by the Bureau, but we can see that the EMSD and the Bureau side with the MTRCL. The MTRCL is telling us here that there is no evidence to show that safety of the railway system has been compromised because of the outsourcing of the maintenance work. So we were told that it was a copper rope. And now, Secretary, now you did a lot of good work in the investigation into the Lama tragedy. But then today, we are no longer concerned about what the two captains did. We are concerned about the system within the Marine Department. So why is it that at this early stage you are saying that we should not put the blame on the outsourcing of the maintenance system? Why is it that you are sort of singing in tandem with the MTRCL? Now, of course, I understand that it's too early to jump to a conclusion on the cause of the accident. But then again, it's really not appropriate to say that maintenance is not a problem. In 2013, on the Tseung Kwan O Line, for service disruption exceeding 5 minutes, the number of disruptions was the greatest among all the lines, and yet this is the youngest line. So we are of the view that the outsourcing of maintenance is problematic. And so will you halt the outsourcing of maintenance for the Hong Kong Island Western Line? Will you halt the outsourcing of the Chun Wan Depot? According to Section 16 of the ordinance, serious disruption is in fact an act of omission or negligence. And will you agree with me? And also, I think we should learn from past experience, and we should learn from previous mistakes. Dr. Kam. Now, the time is mine, Secretary, concerning the Island Western Line, the Island Southern Line. You know, on the Southern Island, there will not be drivers, and the maintenance will not be carried out by the MTRCL. So will you stop the halt the outsourcing of the maintenance? Now, I want to say that we adopt the same standards for in monitoring maintenance, whether what is carried out by MTRCL staff or outsourced contractors. So you continue to allow that. Now, the MTRCL has its own arrangements concerning maintenance and repair. I think your question has been answered, Dr. Kam. The question is why on the Tseung Kwan O Line there were the largest number of disruptions exceeding 5 minutes in 2013, and the maintenance of that line was contracted out. Now, in fact, concerning the frequency of disruptions, of course, it may differ from line to line, but I think concerning the situation on the Tseung Kwan O Line is comparable with the situation on other lines. All right, comparable. Chen Kam Lam, not here? Chen Yun Han. Chairman, I'm not a member of the subcommittee. I've come today because the unions have asked me to come. And in fact, union members have all spoken today. The Secretary is saying that incidents do occur on lines maintained by the MTRC, on lines maintained by the contractors. But then I think the Bureau only relies on second-hand information provided to it by the MTRCL. But according to what we've heard, according to the frontline staff, many incidents were caused by maintenance, outsourced maintenance. And also the staff have to follow up on the work done by the outsourced staff. So, Secretary, is it that you merely rely on feedback from the MTRCL, or have you carried out your own inspections? And do you doubt the reliability of the information provided to you by the MTRCL, given the very high frequency of disruptions? Now, Chairman, we look at the outcome. We have standards to measure the outcome, and the EMSD carries out monitoring independently. EMSD can supplement later. Now, and the MTRCL, I understand that about 1/4 of the staff responsible for repair and maintenance are the contractor staff. But in fact, lines where maintenance is carried out by MTRCL staff also have disruptions of service. But then, Secretary, members want to have a comparison. Now, for example, over the past few years, disruptions over 5 minutes. How many percent occurred on lines maintained by MTRCL staff? How many percent occurred on lines maintained by outsourced by contractor staff? Yes, of course we will look into this matter, but I cannot conclude today that outsourcing is the culprit. And we haven't really, or we can't really establish such a relationship, but then the EMSD can supplement here. Please don't waste my time, Director. Yes, perhaps I can say something about the railways. Do you have records? Service disruptions, delays, a comparison, a breakdown of the percentages between MTRCL and contractors, or past 5 years, in the past 5 years, railway incidents. I'm talking about railway incidents, not just delays or disruptions to service. Breakdown of railway, or also incidents caused by human factors of the staff of the MTRCL.
In the past 5 years, the figures were 57, 59, 64, 60, and 52 respectively. We'd like to know the percentage. That's the monthly average. As for the Tseung Kwan O Line incident, every year we recorded only 1, 2, 4 cases. I was asking about the percentages for Tseung Kwan O Line altogether. We would like to know the total. Last week, we did not have an indicator for Tseung Kwan O Line. Mr. Chairman, that's a major incident, but the Assistant Commissioner had to check and check and check. In the past 5 years, there's no rising trend. Well, please listen to me. You submit data. You have to submit data to convince all members that outsourcing and in-house repair and maintenance in the past 3, 5, 10 years or whatnot. Give us the percentages. We would like to know the base figures. We don't want to target the wrong targets. We will analyze the data. Well, if you don't have the data today, give them to us later. Mr. Leung Kwok-hing, they're speaking in Chinese, so I know they're not going to improve. They say they're not compromise. So in English, that is, they will not compromise, tohip. So just by using that term, they're saying that they're not going to make improvement. Are there any linear correlations? Of course not. Otherwise, they would be fired. We asked for all the data. We'd like to know whether there's any linear correlation. Well, don't waste our time. Just give us the data. That's number one. Number two, there is this question about trend. After outsourcing repair and maintenance by the MTRCL, we would like to know the extension of incidents. Extensive? Well, because if the triangular copper rope suddenly loosen, that's really a major problem. You have to investigate into it. Was that caused by artificial or human factors? You said there's no rusting. You check them daily. You didn't discover the loosening situation. So it's a human factor. It's not that you deliberately make a human error. It's just that by checking with the naked eye, you did not detect it. All right. To what extent are you outsourcing repair and maintenance? By way of outsourcing, you'd like to save money. Then, of course, the outsourced staff will have to do more. Otherwise, what's the purpose of outsourcing? Are you having too much time? So you're trying to create trouble for yourself? Honestly speaking, I'll not argue with you. It's a waste of time. Well, after the incident, it's only at 2:30 p.m. that you started to make use of the backup track. Is it that you're compromising? You adopted a wait-and-see attitude to see whether the incident was so grave. So it's after 2:30 p.m. that you use the backup track. You should have immediately thought of that. Secondly, you were adopting a wishy-washy attitude. You did not use the backup tracks, which is like swimming. Red flag, swimming may cause death. Yellow flag, swimming may also cause death, but the situation was not so grave. So you can hoist a red flag. Then people wouldn't opt for the MTR. You lured people into the MTR system. Mr. Leung Kwok-hing, grasp your time better. Michael TIEN is not enough to just deduct their salaries. We should punish them by going to work at 8:30 a.m. and try the crowdedness and the body odor, and also observe the platform screen doors operate. All senior officers of the MTRCL should take the MTR between 8:30 a.m. to 9:30 a.m. and give us a report, just like a book report from students. Where they don't need to answer our questions, Mr. TIEN, send them back to the MTRCL. You asked 2 questions. Are you going to let them off the hook? Well, Mr. TIEN, will you vacate your counselor seat and go back there to supervise them? Mr. Gary Fan, I live in Tseung Kwan O. I have to declare interest. I take the MTR Tseung Kwan O line every day. I cannot accept what the MTR representatives just said, that they thank the public for their tolerance. I really can tolerate no more. Some Tseung Kwan O passengers and Pan-Democrat councillors staged a protest downstairs. They gave us the 10 sins of the MTRCL. Outsourcing affect quality, repair time wrongly estimated, feeder buses don't cross the harbor, passengers' guides were wrong. Fifthly, emergency information not enough, and then signage for feeder buses not enough. And 3 criticisms for the government. Monitoring not enough. Seems that punishment or penalty will suffice. They are passing the buck from one to another. And then minibuses should not have been reduced, causing Tseung Kwan O to be like an isolated island. And then finally, delays and delays for extension lines. This time, in this incident, it's not just the problem of the MTRCL. In terms of policies, the government has to bear huge responsibilities. 3 questions. In the past, the MTRCL told the government that the power supply network was phased to reduce the affected areas under power failure. In fact, in the past, many MTR stations were affected by power failure, but this time the whole Tseung Kwan O Line was suspended. But the Tseung Kwan O Line is quite a new system. What about the design of power supply system for Tseung Kwan O Line? Is it the same as that for the Island Line or Kwun Tong Line? Well, if the power supply network is separated into different zones, why do we have a complete suspension this time? And then will the government review the railway development strategy to avoid Tseung Kwan O being an isolated island with no feeder buses, no minibuses, apart from the MTR, not to speak of cross-harbour services? And then outsourcing should be one of the major causes of this incident. The purpose of outsourcing is to cut costs. Can MTRCL stop outsourcing? I've submitted a motion, and I'd like to urge members to support my motion to send a strong message to the MTRCL. 1 minute. Dr. Kam, the power supply network is segregated into zones. Why is it that the whole line had to be suspended and then outsourcing? Thank you, Chairman. The power network is separated into zones, but this time is at a crossover position that an incident occurred and there were 2 lines were affected. And the Black-O Tunnel turned back position apart, power supply to Lohas Park, etc. was normal. It's just that trains could not turn back, so the whole line was suspended. As for outsourcing, the purpose is not to cut costs. We would like the contractors to introduce new technology into Hong Kong, or unique technology into Hong Kong. As for the second question of Mr. Fan, I think that should be taken up by the transport panel because it's talking about a whole set of comprehensive services. Mr. Chen Kamla, I just missed you, and you're now back. Thank you, Chairman. Concerning this incident on Tseung Kwan O Line, of course, nobody would like to see it happen. But if we say that certain officers deliberately caused that, or relevant officers of the MTRCL deliberately caused that, well, if that's really the case, somebody has to bear the responsibility. But accident is accident. I think we have to be pragmatic and realistic in handling accidents. Mr. Chairman, in terms of prevention and education, how can we do better? To prevent an accident or to launch a fire drill, that's possible. But in the MTR, it is impossible to have a fire drill. You cannot stop the trains for, say, 2 minutes and ask passengers to be evacuated. That's impossible. So, in making preparation for evacuation and transfers, there's bound to be chaos. And suddenly, on the road surface, you have to provide a lot of bus routes to evacuate the passengers. It would be difficult insofar as road traffic is concerned. I'd like to know whether the government will pre-disseminate certain information. For example, the MTRCL should be well prepared, well in advance, to the effect that under what circumstances, under what accidents, how many feeder bus routes should be placed where to evacuate the passengers. Such information is only available when an accident occurs. We don't know this information in advance. So the MTRCL should educate its passengers. Say if you frequently go in and out of Kwun Tong and Lam Tin stations, if something is to happen, you should know where to go. Fire escapes or whatever escapes or exits or what buses you can take, you should be informed well in advance. The MTRCL should not wait till an accident occurs when passenger evacuation is necessary. When MTR staff evacuate passengers, sometimes they don't even know the locations of the feeder bus stops. Now, all these have to be done in advance. So I wonder whether the MTRCL will do all these in advance. 50 seconds, Dr. Kam. Is it possible to have all these contingency plans in advance? Well, we'll examine in detail how we can allow our passengers to grasp more information in advance. I have to repeat that our colleagues all underwent drills in all stations, particularly for free feeder bus services. Before the buses arrive, we won't hoist the display boards or notices. Because if we are to do that in advance, passengers will start queuing up. But we cannot grasp the time of arrival of the buses, so we'd rather have the buses arrive first before we hoist the display notices. Well, they're talking about the chaotic situation. It's not about your colleagues. Members ask how you would educate members of the public. It's a very different plan. That is, you should tell the public at what stations, where you can take what. Now, all these should be done in advance.
Sorry, the speaker is not coming through. Sorry, the speaker is not coming through. Oh, so is it that at every station you can tell passengers which modes of transport they can use? All right. Mr. Poon Chiu Peng, so it's lucky that no one was injured in the incident, but then there was a lot of time cost involved. Just now, MTRCL explained to us the cause of the incident, but I want to say that in fact problems arise because of outsourcing of maintenance. Now, first of all, I've got a question for the administration. I think we are over-relying on the railway service as the backbone of our public transport system. We only have one railway corporation. Yes, I understand that there will be a tunnel, but still we're concerned about the provision of public transport service for Tseung Kwan O. Then second, I've got a question for the EMSD. So you are primarily responsible for carrying out inspections. You said you had rigorous standards to go by, and I understand that you're going to carry out an investigation after this incident. I want to know whether you're going to step up your inspections and your checks, because if you carry out more inspections and checks, then a number of incidents should go down. So as Secretary, is it that it's not good to have only one railway corporation? Are we over-relying on railway service? Now, Chairman, is it that we are allowing MTRCL to monopolize the public transport service in Hong Kong? Is it that we are over-relying on the railway system as the backbone of our public transport service. I want to say that in fact franchise buses account for over 30% of the market share, and railway over 40%. There are 5 railways being constructed. Even if they are all completed, the market share of the railway system will only be over 40%. So the railway services doesn't really monopolize the public transport sector in Hong Kong. But of course, there will be a comprehensive review concerning the public transport landscape in Hong Kong. So you think there is no need to have another railway company operating in Hong Kong? Chairman, the 2 railway corporations were merged. We now only have 1 railway corporation, and that's why we need to step up regulation. Right, EMSD inspections. Chairman, depending on the number of incidents and the trends, we do adjust the number of inspections and the frequency of inspections. We also review the maintenance guide of the MTRCL on a regular basis, and we do advise the MTRCL to make improvements where necessary. The question is whether there is room for improvement. But then this incident is still under investigation, and we will make recommendations for improvement after the investigation. Mr. Wu Chi-wai, I need to go to cast my vote in another room. Now we can see that the contingency measures were not satisfactory on the occasion. It was lucky that the service disruption did not, or the incident did not occur during the peak periods. Can I ask the corporation whether you have alternative and much larger scale emergency measures if such an incident occurs during the peak period? Jeff said that a lot of information was available on the corporation's website. But then we would consult the district councils whether these emergency measures are adequate to deal with emergency situations. And then on TV, I saw the staff and it seemed that they didn't really possess too much information. So how can you make sure that if there is an incident, all the staff in the station are equipped with sufficient information? You know, the passengers feel very helpless. During non-peak hours, not many passengers will read your travel news. So passengers rely on your in-station broadcast and also the advice given by your staff. But on TV, we saw the staff telling the passengers who asked them questions they didn't know, they were not sure how long they would have to wait, and so on and so forth. And then I think the contingency measures reflect the management's commitment. And I think the quality of management should be pegged to the issuing of bonus to the management. All right. Dr. Kam, can you comment on the emergency or contingency measures in general? Then why is it that the frontline staff were unable to tell the passengers how long the disruption would last, and so on and so forth? Because the passengers really felt helpless. Yes, Chairman. When an incident occurs, our top priority is to try to resume the service as soon as possible so as to minimize any inconvenience caused to the traveling public. In fact, there were over 300 extra staff deployed. Some carry out rescue operations, some or repair, some try to arrange for emergency buses to be deployed. And so at the time, there were a lot of developments going on. It will be difficult to expect all the staff to know all the information. But of course, we will try to make sure that our staff can provide real-time, up-to-date information to passengers. And then feeder buses, yes, they will be available, but we don't know when they will arrive. But when the staff have got the information, that they can pass the information on to the passengers. And then the capacity of feeder buses is different from the capacity of trains, and so feeder buses can only play a supplementary role. But then we hope that passengers will be able to plan their journeys before they arrive at the stations. Mr. Frankie Yik. Chairman, this council acts in a very strange manner. Now, when the corporation proposes a fare increase, we keep saying that the fares are too high, costs should be cut, and maintenance can be contracted out. But then if there are incidents, members will ask the MTRCL to stop the maintenance outsourcing. Now, I was involved in frontline management previously, though our system was a much smaller one. And I don't think all outsourcing should be halted. But the administration and the MTRCL should critically look at what can be outsourced and what cannot. Now, for the critical maintenance works, it's better to have these undertaken by the staff themselves. Now, because the staff are loyal and have more passion about their work, because we really have to work with our heart. And I think in general it's difficult or more difficult to manage the contractor staff. Though the secretary kept saying that the same standards were applied. But then, it's quite difficult to hire blue-collar workers in Hong Kong. Outsourcing can't solve all the problems, and I don't know whether the contractors' staff are well qualified. Then I think the corporation staff are generally more experienced and are better able to spot problems. And the secretary said that the MTRCL accounted for over 40% of the market share. And so if there is service disruption, you can't really substitute the railway service by road-based transport. And some newspapers say that there should be more buses on standby, but who will have to bear the cost? And on Monday, we saw that the coordination was not good enough. I think the Bureau should ask the MTRCL to make improvements. Mr. Yik, do you have a question that you want to ask, or is it that you just wish to make some comments? These are only my comments and requests. Secretary, I understand that members are concerned about maintenance outsourcing, and I've promised to provide more information to members later, which lines are maintained by MTRCL staff and which are not, and the performance of these various lines. MTRCL, any response? Yes, Chairman. Now concerning the maintenance of the Tseung Kwan O Line and the maintenance of the rolling stock on other lines. Now, outsourcing means contracting out day-to-day maintenance. Now concerning the so-called heavy-duty maintenance or the upgrading of the systems, capital investments, and also emergency responses, these are done by our own staff. So we monitor the performance of the contractors, and a lot of the maintenance work is still carried out by our own staff. 6 more members would like to speak. In the first round, we won't have a second round, and we'll have to deal with 3 motions. May I suggest that we extend the end time to 1:15 p.m. Mr. Kwat. Now, Chairman, I do not support motions which are about apportioning blame and punishing people. This is not the right time to do these things. I think we should try to make sure that similar incidents or more serious incidents from occurring in the future. So concerning whether there should be outsourcing and the emergency measures that should be put in place, I think we are ultimately talking about risk management. We need to have predictions, forecasts, we need to have assessments, we need to have control, and then we work out strategies, including timely and suitable emergency measures. There were problems of the overhead cables on that day, and there were 2 separate sections which went wrong, and some engineers on that day could guess the cause. Now, this is a simple device, but it's a critical device, that triangular device, and so I think if you had done risk identification and risk assessment, you would have known that the safety index of the device should have been enhanced. So I think you haven't really done a detailed enough risk assessment. So perhaps you can tell us more about your risk assessment. Now, I don't want to move a motion, Chairman, but I think we want to have from them in writing the risk management mechanism at the moment and what improvements there will be. For example, will there be a comprehensive check of all the critical components or parts to step up the safety index? Now, in fact, this is a good example. Sometimes stepping up the safety index can be very cheap.
Just now, colleagues asked about the using of the backup track along the Kwun Tong line, and there was a delay. That's what colleagues said. And then the MTR said that it took them some time to decide whether or not to use the backup tracks. So do we have other contingency measures to be included in the operational manual? You don't know what will happen in future. It may be a major incident. You may not be able to use the tracks at all. So apart from feeder buses, what will you do? Risk management, in particular, why you need a crossover for 2 systems. Well, 30 seconds will not be enough for us to explain the details of the risk management system. In our operational experience, be it in Hong Kong or in overseas jurisdictions or mainland jurisdictions or other railway incidents in our branch companies, all information will be keyed into our central system for future reference. In future, will there a written report, explain all these details? Yes, a written report. They have already undertaken to give us a written report. Mr. Albert Chan, well, Mr. Chairman, we have 1 to 2 or even 3 or 4 such meetings on incidents. It seems that this has become a practice, a habit, and remarks were repeated and repeated. Mr. Stephen Lam has left, but they're just like Mr. Stephen Lam. They're just like human recorders, repeating and repeating what they've already said. And all these officers here enjoy high salaries. I'm only pursuing one issue. Now, why do accidents occur? Design error, human error, or whatnot? We'll await the investigation report. A colleague blamed us for supporting outsourcing. People Power and LSD have all along opposed outsourcing. Please put this clearly on record. By outsourcing, the genuine interest of employees are exploited. So this outsourcing system is a system to transfer benefits, and through this system, the welfare of grassroots employees are exploited. So the pandemocrats must oppose this. For over 10 years, we repeatedly request that the MTRC and the Transport Department force the MTRC to give us a contingency plan. Every time they mention feeder buses, their own staff, etc. Give us the details and particulars. What about the frequencies of the feeder buses, etc., etc.? We want the details of the contingency plan. If the incident involves 2 to 3 stations, what will your contingency plan be? If 7 stations are involved, like this incident on the Tseung Kwan O Line, what's your contingency plan? We want to know against what yardstick we are to measure your services. Every time you say you have feeder buses, for the Fire Services Department, they also have a performance pledge as to how many fire engines would arrive in how many minutes. The CEO of the MTRCL has a salary of over $10 million, perhaps not for him, but for his predecessor. Please give us all details in black and white. If the MTRCL is not doing that, the Secretary for Transport and Housing, Professor Anthony Cheung, should give us figures on contingency plans. For a major station, for a minor station, for 3 stations, for 5 to 7 stations, what should the contingency plan be? You have to deliver. Don't leave everything for them. Well, on a rainy day, they called an open deck bus to take the passengers. That means they don't have enough feeder buses. What's your question? Well, give us a written reply with all the details. Don't lead us round and round without arriving anywhere. The contingency plan should not be a secret. Professor Zhang, well, Mr. Chairman, the contingency plan is no secret. Well, when will they submit the plan to us? In 2 weeks' time? Professor Zhang will discuss with the MTRCL, will offer an explanation. Thank you, STH. This is the first time the government formally undertakes to give us the contingency plan. In the past, they led us round and round without arriving anywhere. So we have to commend Professor Cheung. Next, Mr. Lee Chak-yan. Mr. Chairman, just now the MTRCL was insisting on its own system and measures. In the incident, it's because an overhead cable broke. There may be 2 possibilities. Design problem, they should have 2 cables. Secondly, repair and maintenance problem. They failed to detect the material fatigue. Obviously, there was a problem, but they said that they emphasized risk management. The most unreasonable aspect is that the MTRCL only knows that fare should be increased, and then their officers enjoy super high salaries. The 9 senior officers, most senior officers, none of them here, received a total salary of $37 million with bonuses at the level of $17 million. And the highest ranking officer, the CEO, receives $12 million with a monthly salary of $1 million plus 300,000 options. Well, how much do those 300,000 options cost? You can do your own calculation. And still, they came up with such an incident. And on that day, it's total chaos. Passengers waited for over an hour before they could board a bus. And for the whole incident, if maintenance and design were done well, the incident would not have happened. And today they still insist that outsourcing is okay because there's a monitoring regime. But you cannot have the best of both worlds. You have policies, your subordinates can act against that. Just tell us the wages of the outsourced workers. Compare them with your in-house staff. And those who have left, quality is bound to be poor. You will have a recurrence of this incident and will again ask you to stop outsourcing. All right, number one, don't just increase fares. Bureau Director, what are you going to do? Next year, in accordance with your upward and downward adjustment mechanism, they'll ask for fare increases. Can we reduce the fares? It's such a major incident with 5 hours of service suspension. They should deduct fares. So, how would you view fare adjustment next year? And then, given such a major incident, the CEO is not here today. He is receiving $12 million, but he has disappeared. And for the highest ranking officers, they receive bonuses to the tune of $17 million. They should all be held accountable. Well, Mr. Lee, when I was chairman of the MTRCL, I had a floating salary system. And the exact bonuses were pegged to the number and severity of incidents occurred. So, will you consider floating salary system? Oh, yes. 3 questions then. Give them 30 more seconds to answer. Professor Cheung, well, firstly, about fare adjustments, how should we take reference from their actual performances? Yes, indeed, at the beginning of this year, we revised the fare adjustment mechanism. And a number of arrangements were built into the system, including a penalty. The penalty will be plowed back to the same-day second trip discount scheme. No, I'm asking for fare reduction. Well, I was referring to the same-day second trip discount. As for how the salaries of the high-ranking officers can be pegged to their performances, well, honorable members have offered a number of comments. I'll bring them back to the board of directors of the MTRCL for consideration. We have a salary determination committee, which every year considers different indicators, including service indicators. Well, you are the major shareholder. You are one of the directors. You are totally irresponsible. Well, Bureau Director, please go back and refer to past records of the KCR. Probably you can learn something there. Now, I have several remarks here. Bureau Director, you can take a rest. Well, I just said that the meeting would be extended to 1:15 p.m. I have one request. Now, one power supply system to one railway is just like the brain of a human being. If a train is in trouble, you tow the train away. But if the power supply system fails, the whole system, the whole line fails. 3-day or 27 days of inspection with the naked eye, be it the pantographs or the cables. I hope that repair and maintenance will not be outsourced because these are just too important, and I don't know how much cost you can save by doing outsourcing. Secondly, for this incident, is it because of the design and build system? Why did the MTRCL accept such a design? In 7 locations, you have the copper ropes. In 6 locations, is 7 copper ropes towing 1 overhead cable. Now, it is 1 copper rope towing 2 overhead cables. Even back then, I found that surprising. Normally, if it is one tows one, when something happens, you need 2 as a backup. So it seems that you're already providing an excessive one. Back then, did anyone query the design? Well, the copper rope is so important in towing the overhead cables. Why not 2 tow 1 or 3 tow 1? Is there an element of negligence on the part of MTRCL? At a low cost, you could have already prevented such a suspension. And for a copper rope, even when it becomes rusty, you can't detect it by naked eye inspection. So why don't you use actual metal, a tube-like metal? Why should you use these copper ropes? And in fact, at present, the design is erroneous. Who should be responsible? Will you pursue the then contractor for their design? Because at the moment, the design is problematic. Thank you, Chairman. We'll seriously consider that suggestion. As for the design and build operation, the supplier this time is an international supplier. For the overhead cables, they have their own system of design and supply. As regards whether it shouldn't be 2 towing 1, we have to wait till the detailed laboratory test results before we can be sure. If there's something wrong with the design, we'll pursue the contractor in accordance with the contract terms. What did you say that you would consider all copper ropes used in Hong Kong and transfer them into something like pipes or tubes? We'll seriously consider that suggestion. So what about converting all copper ropes into tubes or pipes? Well, the power supply system is comprehensive, including the supports, the copper ropes, etc. We cannot just change part of it. What about the Tseung Kwan O Line? Can you use tubes or pipes instead? We will have to look at the whole power supply system first. Would you please look at this? Go back and look at this, because a recurrence can occur anytime. Chairman, you are really an expert. Well, Mr. Christopher Chung. Well, on listening, I think it has nothing to do with outsourcing. The problem lies with the design. Is it that if you had not outsourced repair and maintenance, this incident would not have happened? You have to look at the quality of the contractors under outsourcing. Do they meet your requirements in terms of repair and maintenance?
So we have to look at whether the design is sound. If we discover that the problem is with the design, then we may not or we should not be putting the blame on outsourcing of maintenance. And are there other design faults? And these design faults may be the potential causes of future problems or incidents. So is it that the MTRCL should carry out a comprehensive inspection of all its lines? Now, yes, the chairman suggests that there should be an additional rope, but all 4 ropes of a lift may break at the same time. And then concerning the contingency measures, now it is said that the information is in the website, but how can you expect millions of passengers on a daily basis to check the contingency measures? Passengers rely on the instructions and advice of your staff. and some passengers may be panic-stricken. What measures are there to make them less scared during detrainment? And then how can your station staff direct passengers to other modes of transport? And are there evacuation measures in place at each and every station? And then prevention. I think MTRCL should look at prevention. Now, concerning the tracks, the rolling stock, every aspect of your operation, you have to make sure that they are all in a fit and healthy state. So, Mr. Chong, you've spent 3 minutes. So, can you detect signs of problems at an early stage? 1 minute from for the MTRCL. Yes, thank you, Chairman, and I thank the member for the question. In fact, we do have contingency measures for each and every station, and the station staff have been trained to implement these contingency measures. But sometimes our staff may not be able to answer the passengers' questions. For example, they may ask, if I want to go to a certain place, which bus route should I take? And these services are not operated by us, and so we'll have to do some research. But so you're not doing enough. And so, of course, we need to see how we can step up the dissemination of information to passengers. And concerning the inspections and checks of our system, now for overhead cables, we have a dedicated train operated by us to assess and measure the alignment of the overhead cables. And then concerning our tracks, we and other components, we do have monitoring systems. Mr. Chang Hang Pan, can you hear me? Can you hear me? No. Now, 3 times a year. So are we talking about small problems or bigger problems? I think we shouldn't just be looking at the copper rope. We should have more comprehensive checks. On the occasion, your staff as well as the commuters suffered. Many have criticized the contingency measures. Now you do have feeder buses, and the feeder buses took the passengers from Teow Keng Lang to Yau Tong. In fact, you should have taken the passengers to Kun Tong, not Yau Tong. So it was rather chaotic on that day. I want to know whether the control post did function well on that day. And then dissemination of information. Now, can you provide some screens outside the MTR stations displaying useful information to the passengers so that they will have to keep asking your staff questions? And then I am concerned as to whether there is subcontracting of maintenance works. And I want to know whether the government's emergency coordination center was activated in this case. And then we can see that for Tseung Kwan O, if the train service is disrupted, then the outbound and inbound traffic for Tseung Kwan O would be entirely paralyzed. So would a tunnel be constructed at an earlier stage? Now, Chairman, on that day 2 lines were affected. And so feeder buses for both lines were deployed. Now, in fact, we had dozens of colleagues responsible for feeder buses, and then there were the drivers of the buses. Now, because the stations where buses would stop had been fixed, but then we knew that one of the stops was at a station where passengers could not get train service, and so we issued the corrected information to drivers and the staff. But before they received the revised or corrected information, they could only follow the original instructions or routes. So they initially followed the initial routes, but then they received instructions that they should take passengers to another station. And then I want to say that there are screens at our turnstiles at all the stations, and we'll see whether we should be providing more screens at our stations. We have 6 minutes left. We have 3 motions before us. The first one proposed by Mr. Wong Kwok-hing, seconded by Tseung Kwan O Line. Second one proposed by Tseung Kwan O Line and seconded by Wong Kwok-hing. I will not read out the motions. And then the third one moved by Mr. Frank Kwok-wai and seconded by Lee Chak-yan. And I think 3 of them, all 3 of them are relevant to the item being discussed. So we'll deal with them. First one, Mr. Wong Kwok-hing's motion. Can I read out my motion? Please be quick. But then the second one is long, and if you read it out, then it would take 6 minutes. Now, I just want to urge the administration to extend the fine system for the MTRCL to cover the bonuses and the pay of directors, and there should be an implementation timetable worked out. All right, those who are in favor? Now, those who are in favor, please. Those against? Abstentions? Two, 5, 4, 3 against. Five, 4 against. 2 abstentions. I want to claim a division. Claim a division? How many minutes? Not enough time. All right, doesn't matter. All right, I'll read out the names. Wu Chi Wai, Fan Kwok Wai, Leung Kwok Hong, Tseung Kwan O Line, Wong Kwok-hing in favor. Chen Kam Lam, Chung Shukan, Frankie Yik, Lo Wai Kwok against. All right. Second one. Second motion, Mr. Tseung Kwan O Line. It's too long. Just read it. Just read it yourselves. All right. Those in favor. Those against. 5, and then 4, and then 2 abstentions. 5, 4, 2 against, 2 abstentions. The distribution is exactly the same. Then the third one, moved by Mr. Gary Fan. It's shorter. Do you want to read it out? No need, no need. You want to stop all maintenance outsourcing, right? Those in favor? 5. Those against? 4. Please record the names. All right, right. All right. I think we can adjourn the meeting. Thank you.